So I'm going to try to explain what's going on in the Mideast from a divine perspective. That is, from God's perspective. What the heck is going on and why? And I'm going to use Noah and the possibility of Noah's fourth son, which is kind of interesting. I just learned about this myself, but I want to share this with you. So let's take a look at the origins of the land of Canaan, which is now called Palestine. People often talk about the curse of Ham, and that curse finds its origins in Genesis 9:20. And it says, Noah began to be a husbandman, that is a gardener, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent, probably with his wife. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. We notice immediately that there is no curse on Ham. Ham sinned. He did something very terrible. I mean, Noah doesn't even talk to him after this. The doctrine of Ham being cursed has no basis, because Ham is not cursed in this passage. The Bible says, when Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. So the Bible doesn't go into a lot of specifics. We know that patriarchs like Noah often bless their sons before they die, and Noah does bless Shem, and he does bless Japheth, but he doesn't say anything about Ham, his third son. In fact, what he does is he curses Ham's fourth son, his youngest son, named Canaan. Now, why the heck is that? I mean, that's not explained anywhere in the Bible, but we'll take a look at that too. And Canaan, I mean, that's really odd. Now, patriarchs in the Bible, before they die, generally bless their offspring. They bless their sons. Sometimes they curse their sons. Let's take a look at what happens with Noah. It says, before he dies, Noah blessed Shem and Japheth. So there's no mention of Ham. So he's not even talking to Ham anymore. And you got to remember that from the days of Genesis, there is a curse upon the serpent, because Eve is going to have an offspring that's going to crush the serpent's head. And Satan works very hard to destroy that curse upon his head. Now, a key component of this story is, of course, the serpent. You know, the serpent is cursed by God that someday the offspring of Eve is going to crush the head of the serpent. And so, even in the story of Cain and Abel, I mean, why is it that Cain kills Abel? Why doesn't Cain simply kill off his flocks and his herds, or beat him up or something? But why is it that Cain is driven to kill his brother? And perhaps Satan had something to do with that. Perhaps, a demon entered Cain. It's very possible. Doesn't say anything about it in the Bible. There's not a lot there, but Satan does spend a lot of his time trying to make sure that the Messiah is not born, or if the Messiah is born, that the Messiah will be killed, and he kills off whole lineages of people. And so maybe somewhere along the line, Satan has a hand in what happened with Ham. Maybe Ham does take advantage of his father's wife. Or maybe he is the one that influences Canaan. There were an awful lot of Nephilim in the land of Canaan. And, for example, the caves, remember Jesus throws out the demons out of a man who has a legion inside him. And this legion of demons causes the man to spend a lot of time in the caves and the caverns that are up in that land around where Og of Bashan was in power. So it's very possible that there's a connection there. And if you read, or if you listen to Josephus, the historian, he makes it very clear that there were giants and skeletons of giants in the caverns, that when the Roman soldiers came to conquer Israel, the leaders of Israel took the Roman generals into the caverns and showed them the enormous skeletons there. And these things were huge. And those generals were astounded. Now you have to remember that the seed of Adam goes to Abel, which goes to Seth, which goes to Noah, which then goes to Shem, and it turns out that Shem is the great-great-grandfather of Abraham. Then it goes to David, of course, and eventually gets to Mary and Joseph, who then have Jesus, who is the offspring of Shem. So all it says really is, quote, "The Canaanites' abundant wickedness proved the curse was warranted." What does that mean? The phrase in the Bible, "saw his father's nakedness," is sometimes interpreted as a euphemism for sexual activity. If in fact Ham had somehow had relations with Noah's wife, his mother, and the offspring turned out to be Canaan, his fourth son, which would then become Noah's stepson, Noah's half-son, then there's a real problem there. I mean, Noah has a son that is illegitimate, that's going to be like a noose around his neck the rest of his life, named Canaan. So is that why Canaan is cursed? Is that his abundant wickedness? Just the fact that he was born? Some believe that an incestuous relationship between Ham and his mother occurred. And they base this upon the laws that God then enforces in Leviticus 18, 6-7, 11, 20. No one is to approach any close relative to who have sexual relations. I am the Lord. And do not dishonor your father by having sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have relations with her. The fact that Canaan's mother remains unidentified might be inconsequential, or it could be a clue to the nature of Ham's sin. Till further evidence is presented, the question of Canaan's mother remains a mystery. But the book of Jubilees somewhat clarifies things as to what the actual sin of Canaan was. So what exactly is the promised land? Is it promised to Abraham for his descendants? Well, actually, it comes before Abraham. It's Noah's son Shem. And recall that Noah has 3 sons. One of them, named Shem, actually inherited that region of the world. He inherited what is now called the land of Israel and was called the land of Canaan at one time. And why was there so much to do about that land of Israel? Because if you think about it, Abraham and his descendants went through a lot. I mean, they became slaves in Egypt for 400 years. They had Moses to lead them out of Egypt and all the plagues and everything that had to happen to get them to that point. And then their whole purpose was to travel into what is called Canaan and take control. And so by the time they got to Canaan, they walked inside and said, you know, there's giants, there's Nephilim living here. We can't go in there and fight. So God had to wait an extra 40 years, keeping them in the desert. I mean, this is a long, long process just to get them into the land of Canaan. And then they had to fight with Og of Bashan, who was a 14-foot giant, and his people, and his offspring. One of them who may be Absalom, and we can talk about that later. But before we get there, what happened to Noah? And what happened to Shem, and why didn't Shem take over the land he was supposed to inherit? The book of Jubilees states, "And Canaan saw the land of Lebanon to the river of Egypt, that it was very good. And he went not into the land of his inheritance, to the west, that is, the sea, and he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, eastward and westward, from the border of Jordan and from the border of the sea. And Ham, his father, and Cush, and Mizraim, or Egypt, his brother, said to him, Thou hast settled in a land which is not thine, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do so, for if thou doest so, thou and thy sons will fall into the land and be accursed through sedition.
For by sedition ye have settled, and by sedition will thy children fall, and thou shalt be rooted out for ever and ever. Dwell not in the dwelling of Shem, for to Shem and to his sons did it come by their lot. So here's a map of the land that Shem actually inherits, and it includes what's now called Saudi Arabia, there's Turkey, there's Israel, Asia, all the way to the it looks like Japan is on this map. So that is the land that should belong to Shem. And here in the lower left corner is the map that belongs to Ham. It includes Africa, and it looks like Australia. So it's the lower part of the continents. You can see Put, which is Libya, Mizraim, which they still call Egypt today, and they sometimes call it Mizraim today. There's Cush, which is Ethiopia and southern Africa. And then Canaan, which oddly enough becomes the slave coast in more modern history. That is where Canaan was supposed to settle, but he doesn't. He takes the land, which is now called Israel. So here are the side-by-side maps. Israel during Joshua's time, which includes the Canaanites, Amorites, Jebusites. These are all part of Canaan. The Ammonites, the Moabites, and then you can see on the right what is supposed to be the Promised Land, which includes the tribes of Israel. There's Manasseh, there's Ephraim, there's Gad, Judah, and then you can also see on there the Philistines, the land of the Philistines, which was part of the map of Canaan.
So do I believe that Noah had a fourth son and that his name was Canaan? I think it's possible, but I don't think it's probable. And I say this because they were trapped in a ship for an entire year. They watched the entire world get decimated and destroyed. And they were confined and they were locked in. Remember, they were locked in from the outside in this ship. And they were together with a lot of animals. Imagine doing that for an entire year, being in a prison like that. I mean, that's got to be brutal. That's got to be, there's got to be PTSD involved. There's got to be all kinds of, psychological trauma. And I don't know. What do you think? More than likely, the curse of Canaan came about because he tried to steal the land that belonged to Shem. And it makes sense, and it's exactly what's happening today with the Hamas and with Israel, the people in Israel right now. It's a grab for the land. It's a grab to get rid of those people no matter what. And this has been going back now for almost 5,000 years. So it's nothing new, but it is very dangerous.